Hey, this is Drake, Twin Falls, Idaho Advantage Archery. We're going to walk you through some of the common mistakes when setting up a new bow, show you how a pro shop should be doing it, or we like to do it. We're going to be installing a Hamskea hybrid on this Prime CT3 today. Kind of run you through the basics on how to set that rest up and get that bow shooting right. First thing that we always like to do here at the shop is to mount the rest in, and we want it to be in a nice level position. So we'll just get this bolt started in on it. When we have that rest sitting in there, we want this mounting bar to set level with the actual bow system when it's leveled up too. That just assures that everything's kind of squared up. So when we get to tuning the bow, setting all the axis on the sights and stuff, everything's on one plane. So you can put levels on them and stuff like that. I just kind of do the eyeball on them. We want to make sure that rest gets secured good and tight. So I like to use a ratchet instead of just a handheld Allen wrench set. That way you can get a little torque on it, get that washer to crush down, kind of locks the rest in. Most rests, this Hamskea, they do have a lockdown screw on them, so this will jam that set screw up against the riser, puts a little pressure on it so that rest is secured, can't move on you while you're on your big hunts, okay? Second thing we're gonna wanna do, take it out. We're gonna wanna set the center shot, so that's the alignment of the launcher, straight in line with the string, and the knock travel through the burger hole set. I like to use a T-square for that. Saunders makes a good one we like to use here in the shop. Plastic, clips on easy. So depending on the manufacturer of the bow, how that arrow shaft goes to the burger hole setting varies slightly. Prime makes it really easy for you when you get one out of the box. They have a knock set that shows you where their knock travel should be. So a level knock travel will bring that down, right even with theirs. Now I can move that rest launcher to the appropriate position we want it. Rest with micro adjustments like this one make life a lot easier when you're setting your bow up. Loosen up the bolt and you got real fine-tuned control over how much movement you're actually doing on the rest. So while I got the T-square on there, I actually like to use my eyeball to run the center shot. So I can actually just eyeball down the string, look down it, and see where my center shot setting is on my rest. If you go to your owner's manual, most bow manufacturers will tell you what their appropriate center shot should be on a bow. A lot of today's bows run about a 13/16 center shot. So if you're within the 5/8 to 7/8 range, the bow manufacturer says that's within the specs. So I always like to start everything just eyeballing it, which if I was to take a tape measure and measure it, probably at about 13/16. That's right where we're at. So setting up the down cord on this rest. So this is a limb driven system. So it's gonna run off of an up cable movement or a limb driven style. So several options. Hamskea comes with a limb pad that we can install on the limb so we can actually tie around the limb system. Makes a very secure knot there, ties in well. With the primes where they have these extended axles, it's really easy to tie onto the end of the axle, and that gives you right out on the limb tip so you get plenty of rest action. Other options, you can come into the up cable and tie into that. I like to go around the limbs. That's more of a personal setting, preference on what you want to do. So when tying this in, I always like to start with just a simple knot. That gives me a good secure system. Burning knot ends, we're gonna wanna flare that up. Take our lighter and we're gonna burn that so it just looks clean. Nice melt knot. Tap that down, there we go. Gonna loosen up the cord clamp, so we got plenty to work with. I always like to snug the cord clamps back down because the cord can pop out of the clamp, and it takes you more time to get it fed back in. Several ways you can tie around the axle around the limb. You could run a slide knot system where you tied it like that and we could actually slide it down into position. That works well. I like to do a half hitch around the axle in. Then come around and make that half hitch knot. Secure it down. And this is, you gotta get a little physical with them. You really want that to set down so it can't come loose in the field and cause you a lot of issues there. The great thing about running a limb-driven style rest, no pressure required to install the rest or to do any maintenance, any tuning on the rest. It's all done out of the press system. So gonna do that, and then now setting the activator cord. So this cord right here is what actually activates the rest, holds it down. When you draw back, it's gonna loosen up and let it up. Gonna come in, we're gonna loosen that ball back up. Hamskey runs a buffering spring on the rest. Allows you to do several cool things with the rest. One, it does, it helps buffer when the shot goes off. You don't get any rebound off that launcher. Second thing it does, you can actually adjust the timing with how tight you're pulling this cord on the rest. So you can adjust timing when tuning the bow to get optimal arrow flight. So I like to run the football clamp, ball clamp right about the bottom of the grip. That gives me plenty of cord so I can adjust the rest up to look at things when tuning and stuff like that. So we're gonna pull it nice and snug. I don't want to over pull this buffer. I want the launcher to come down, and I just want a little load on that. And we're just gonna tighten this up real quick, just like that. Okay, so we're gonna have this big tail cord hanging out. Several options. Some guys like to tie it into this, and that way they got plenty of cord if they ever need to change to a different bow, something like that. This is going on this bow and staying there, so we're actually gonna tie another overhand knot right there, right below it, so that's gonna help that football cord stay there. We're gonna clip that off and burn that knot so it's nice and clean too. Okay, so we got our rest on there. Next step would be to go paper tune the bow. First we gotta put our D-loops on. So, installing the D-loop. Got that knock set that Prime puts on us from factory that shows us where our the knock travel position is. So first thing we don't do, I don't like having knock sets on the string, so I'm gonna take that off real quick. Get that out of my way. It's time to D-loop on the string. So there's several different lengths of D-loops guys like, so once you find what you want, if you measure it, you can replicate that D-loop over and over. We like to start with about a 5-inch piece of D-loop cord, and then we can adjust it if we want it shorter or longer later. So you want to swell the end out, just take the lighter and tap it on it like that. And that'll give you a good mushroom knot. Get that all swelled out. One common mistake a lot of guys make when making D-loops, they don't get this mushroom knot or this melt knot big enough. They leave it kind of small and button head like that. That allows it to pull through that knot that we tie later. So that's one thing that you really want to be careful that you get a good knot going on it. One of the other common problems with D-loops or mistakes people make is they get that material too hot. You don't ever want this to catch on fire. You just want to make a nice light burn on it. So I never really get that D-loop into the flame too much. Get a good mushroom knot going on. We're gonna come around. It's tying a D-loop. It's a pretty simple knot. A lot of people struggle with it. It's a half hitch is all it is. So we always want to just get our first one going with that half hitch style knot. We're going to suck this mushroom knot down. You can see my mark where that knock set was. I'm going to bring it down into position, pull it tight. Another common problem with guys tie D-loops is we want the knot away from the actual string nocks. So when you tie that knot, you want your tail or your D-loop section towards your arrow knock. We don't want it the other way. If you have it the other way, what it causes is a lot of knock pinch problems because that D-loop's pulling harder off the outside versus pulling straight back off the inside. Got our first knot tied, switch sides of the string. So I tied that knot on this side, on the shelf side of the string. I want to come to the accessory side, back through the middle, wrap around the D-loop, through the string, around the string, and back through. So that creates your half hitch. So we got that, we're going to swell that up, we're going to melt that. Once we got a good melt knot, there's several D-loop style pliers on the market. We like to use the Easton needle nose ones. You can put that in there. It actually has a groove that grabs the string, grabs that loop, so we can stretch that out. Make it nice and pretty, just about like so. And there's, you've got a D-loop. So one thing that a lot of guys are doing, and it works well, is tying knots in between your D-loops. I like to do that after the final tune is done. If I need to make any adjustments on that D-loop up and down for knock travel, after I get everything solid shooting through paper, I'll actually just open this up, install my arrow knock in there. I always tie the bottom knot first, bring it back up, tie your top knot, and then using a different set of pliers, we can set that length for the D-loop by cinching it down even tighter. Got the rest installed, D-loop ready. we're gonna be installing the sight. This particular bow, customer wants to put a Black Gold Pro mover on it. So really nice sight, come out last year. Really impressed with this sight. Black Gold did a great job on it. This has a wing truss on it, so we can actually take the sight assembly off. We got our mount system here with our bolts. Bolt that right on. So one thing you want to definitely do, cinch that mount down. See a lot of sights come loose during hunting season with hiking in or riding an ATV, bouncing around in a truck. Sight comes loose, all of a sudden you're shooting all over the place. It's one of the big things we see during hunting season, sights and rests coming loose, and that really affects guys' performance in the field. So there's our sight on the bow. Okay, so with most of today's newer sights that are on the market, they have second and third axis adjustments on it so you can truly level the sight to the bow system. So if your sight doesn't have that, that's not really super crucial because most bows today are manufactured with a good machine job, the sight's same. So when you actually bolt it up, most of the time your level's dang close. When you do have the ability to adjust those levels, it is really critical that you take the time to level that sight because a lot of the time right out of the package, the sight's not gonna be leveled up. So I like to do most of the leveling setup in a device similar to this BAP product. We like to use the Hamskea levels for this. So always like to start with one on the wing truss or on the dovetail if we have some direct mount on the sight. We want to get that leveled up. Always have a second one that if you can find a spot on the riser, you can attach another level. Works really good. That way you can verify that your two level planes on the same plane. So we've verified that these two levels are working together, so they're leveling up. If we come to that front level on this sight system, we can see that we're off just a little bit. One thing on any mover sight, whether it be a Spot Hog, a Black Gold, a CBE, any of the sights on the market, I like to verify that this mount is leveled up to that. So we can see right here, just by setting that on top of there, definitely not level on that. So that will be our first point we want to level on this sight. So we're going to loosen up these mount screws on the back of this sight. Bring it up to level, snug them back down. So this is a part where we want to make sure we get this snug, but you got to be careful not to over torque on these because this is a sight that you could strip out possibly. These bolts are thin in there, so get them good and snug, but don't over tighten them. On the Black Gold, the second axis level is actually built into the sight ring, so that has two screws on it. We got two screws right here that we'd loosen up and actually turn this to get that level. This is already set out of the factory, so don't have to do any adjustment there. So our second axis is leveled up now, so we're gonna go to a static third axis level. So the way I like to set most bows up, we're gonna do it in a static state like we are right here with in the vise. So I'm gonna tip that bow forward to about a 45-degree angle, roughly. We're gonna verify this level right here, get it leveled up. So our front level now is sitting to the right a little bit. So on these Black Gold sights, your third axis adjustment is set in this wing truss here, right on the end of it. So it's got a lockdown screw on the one side. I like to loosen it up just a little bit before I make any adjustments, that way I don't have any pressure against the system. And then we're gonna do a static third setting on it. I'm gonna move this side over here. Right there. This lockdown screw, wanna make sure it snug it back up. That's what actually holds that adjustment from being able to move out. And that's our static third. So to finalize that third axis setting, what we'll do with the shooter, the owner of the bow, Hamskea makes theirs with this stem system. We'll install this into that, mount it back on the bow, and then we'll actually have the shooter draw back with draw force curve, go to a 45-degree angle, and verify that he's actually holding the bow level with the sight system and all that. So that's a final adjustment we'll do with the shooter later. So that gets us really close in the ballpark, so it's just a really quick fine-tune adjustment after that. There's your basic setup, guys. If you got any questions, give us a call at the shop.